Hi, my name is Javier from the front team, and today I want to show you some new features we have for app request connectors. The features I want to talk about are pagination and search, which essentially let you return results in a dropdown to your teammates within macros. And these results will be coming from external APIs. For example, in front of us here, we have some Stripe transactions from our Stripe sandbox. So you can see that we have about 17 items in here. And potentially we might want to create a macro that at some point in the macro presents these options, presents these charges for selection to our front teammates, and then they can do other things with those charges downstream. But to power that presentation, we would want our teammates to be able to search and filter down these results. In real life, you might have hundreds or thousands of these transactions. So I want to show you how you can configure your app request to allow your teammates to search through these lists of transactions, which again, applicable to any type of resource that's available through an API. It doesn't have to be Stripe charges. And also, we'll show you how you paginate the list of results because the API normally returns results 10 at a time or some sort of relatively small limit. But with our pagination feature, you'll be able to configure it so people can scroll through the full list of results. So when you combine search and pagination, you'll guarantee that your teammates will be able to find what they need, and it'll be a good experience. Overall, they'll be able to search through very quickly through some relevant results and select a charge or whatever else they're looking for. So let's go into front and just quickly see what that might look like. I've already configured a macro that uses this app request connector to search for some Stripe charges. So when we first opt in to select the charge, it's going to give us this little search box. And so this is where, and you can configure this a little bit more to make it easier in your teammates, but I just want to demonstrate like a very generic scenario where we say the amount is greater than, let's say 0, just to get all charges back. So we should expect to see all 17 of those charges back there. And they'll start showing, I configured it to paginate 2 at a time, so you can see how they're like coming back 2 at a time, going through the full list of results. But if we wanted to limit this, we could say, let's just see what's bigger than, let's say 10,000. And so now we get fewer results back. And we can continue to do that. Say, let's look at charges that are greater than 50,000. And again, we get fewer results. So now let's talk about how to set that up in front. The first thing we want to do is go to our settings and go to company and then to developers. And you'll have to be a company admin to be able to access this, but this is where our apps live. So we essentially want to create a new app that would house our Stripe connectors. I already have an app, so I'm just going to search for Stripe and use that app. One of the things that we have to do to get started is to set up a server that connects to the Stripe API. We have some other documentation and videos that show you how to do that in more detail. But essentially what this means is that we have a server configured to point to the domain for the Stripe API. And we've also got local credentials configured for this server. So I've already done this. I've got my API credentials in there. It's a step that you'll have to do to add in your API credentials for your server. But we have some resources that you can find in the comments that help you do that. But once you have that, the thing that's relevant to us right now is really just how to set up the app request with search and pagination for this example video. So we would want to add a feature to our app. Go to this app request feature and click in there. So let's name this app request. I'm going to name it something like get charges from Stripe, and then click next. So we've got the app request that comes back to us, and we have a search for charges documentation that we get from Stripe's API documentation. So this particular endpoint allows us to look through our charges and search based on a query, which they've documented here. And it also lets us paginate through based on a limit and page. So essentially the query allows you to do things like, here they got some example queries, for example, searching by amount like we demonstrated. You can search by billing details, by when it's created at, by the currency. So you can start filtering your charges based on these queries that they have in their docs. But so that's our search related parameter. Then we also have these pagination parameters. The limit is how many results get returned per page. It looks like their default is 10, and that you can set it to anywhere between 1 and 100 as a default. The page is which cursor to start returning results for. So on the very first API call you make, you can leave this empty so that it returns the first page. But then afterwards, you can use whatever the next page value is. They tell you here that that's what they're using is the next page value being returned in their response. And we'll see that when we configure the app request, how we set that to the next page so that it can auto paginate for us in the macro. So that's the setup here. So let's go ahead and start adding in some of our inputs. Let's go to the input node and let's enable search. It'll give us a search input. I'm going to click into it and I'm going to do a test value. For now, I'm going to say any amount greater than, say, 1,000 is what I want to search for my charges. Click done. And then let's enable pagination. So now for pagination, we know that we need to add in a limit and page parameter. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call one limit. We know that's just a number. I'm going to set it to 5 at a time, returning from the API. So let's click done. And then let's go ahead and add the page. This is a type of string. We know that from their API docs here. It says string. So the initial value, I'm going to set it to blank because I want to get back to first page, and per their docs, you just leave that blank if you want to get the first page back. So we'll click done. Okay, so now we've configured our inputs and we need to now configure the request. So the request is also available here in their docs. You can see it up here. There's this this URL that you can right here, get v1 charges search. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to select my Stripe API server that we've configured with our API credentials, and then type in like the rest of that URL, which was v1/charges/search. And then the next thing we want to do is add in the query string parameters. The way you do that is by typing a question mark and then the name of the query string parameter and an equal sign and its value. We're going to release a feature shortly that will make this a little bit easier so you don't have to type it into the URL. You have a nice little table to add in your query string parameters, but for now, this is the way you do it. So I'll walk you through that. The first query string parameter we want to add is query. Remember, that's our search parameter. So what I'm going to say is query equals, and I'll set this to our dynamic variable for our search input. So I'll click this little plus sign, and we can see our search input there, which we had set up with a test value of amount greater than 1,000. And we've configured the search query string parameter successfully at this point. To add in more, we do an ampersand to denote that there's another query string parameter coming. And we again type in the name of the query string parameter that we want to add. So if we go back to the docs, we remind ourselves that we have limit and we have page. Those are both pagination parameters that we want to add. So let's go ahead and add them. Limit will be equal to the pagination input that we created, which was called limit. And then we'll add in page and set that equal to page. There we go. So when we run this test, we should get back results that are test value amount greater than 1,000. I think that's in cents in the Stripe API. And we're going to get back a maximum of 5 results because that's the limit test value that we set initially. So let's run this test and see what we get. Yeah, we got maximum of 5. And we're seeing here we expand some of these fields. This is all the charges, all the information about the charges that comes back. So you can see that the amounts coming back from these results are all greater than 1,000. So this looks like this test is successful. It's working as we would expect. So I'm going to go ahead and now move on to extracting the data that we want. I'm interested in presenting this full list of charges, these search results essentially, to our admins and our teammates running the front macro. So I'm going to select data, the whole data array, and I'm going to give it the name. Let's just say like a list of charges. You can call this whatever you want, really. And click save. So we're going to extract that. Now I'm going to click done. And let's just run the test to make sure everything's fresh. Looks like it worked. And then in the return data node, we want to add an output that will be an object list. So this will essentially represent the list of charges that we're interested in. I'm going to set that equal to what we extracted from the response. And then here, I'm going to click autofill so that it autofills all the properties that come back, those properties that we were seeing expanded in the previous screen. So all of these come back. So these are all available to us as outputs in our app request. And now to finish this off, we want to make sure that we configure our pagination correctly. So again, the limit is the number of results that return per page. We can just keep that equal to the initial value. For the next page though, if you remember when we look at their docs, they mentioned that the next page value is a parameter that comes back in their response. So we might see it somewhere in here. So we're gonna have to extract that as a dynamic variable and set it to it. So I'm gonna click done for now, but I'm gonna go back to the request and try to find that. So here we can see it. It's right there. It says next page. So that's the one we want to extract. So I'm just gonna extract it. I'm gonna leave it by its default name called next page and click done. So now when I go to return data node and I go down to the page, I should be able to select next page. So essentially what it's doing is the API is telling us whether or not there's a next page, and we're automatically setting our page token to that next page. And that process is going to repeat over and over until there is no next page. So front will automatically be able to paginate through your results. When we click preview and then view list, we'll see some examples of all this data that's coming back for each one of our charges. Again, those correspond to the charges in our sandbox for Stripe. So this data all looks good, and we've successfully configured our app request. I'm going to click save. Now that we've created our app request called get charges from Stripe with search query parameters and pagination parameters configured, we can use that in the macro like we demonstrated earlier in the video. So let's go ahead and create a macro. So I'm going to go to the workspace where I want to create this. I'm going to use my Balcony Bliss demo instance, and I'm going to go to rules and macros. And to do this, you need to be a workspace admin. So you have to have that permission. But I'm going to go to macros, and I'm going to create a new macro from scratch. And let's go ahead and give it a name. Let's say search for Stripe charges. Allows teammates to find Stripe charges. So you can limit this to whatever inbox you want within your workspace or whatever teammate you want, but I'm going to keep it general for this example, clicking done. And so now the part that I want to demonstrate is how you present that macro, that dropdown using your app request to a teammate. So we're going to click the plus sign, and we're going to add in a collect teammate answers node. We're going to power this with a dropdown. And this dropdown will be itself powered by a connector. So here you could envision that at some point in your macro, you're asking your teammate to select from a list of charges. So we're just going to give it a prompt that makes sense, like select the charge you want to update or something like that. And then the app request we're looking for is the one we created. I'm going to type in Stripe, and then it's this one, get charges from Stripe. We had just created that. So those list of charges are going to come back. That's the output that's going to be returned from that connector. And when we click the options list, we can see list of charges, and we can see here, we click this little plus sign, like what we can display to our users. So for example, I might want to display the amount, and then we might want to display maybe the status of that that charge, and perhaps like the customer it applies to. This might be a customer ID, but you could maybe transform that with manipulating a dynamic variable beforehand. So anyway, we can just do that for now, just for demonstration purposes, and click done, and click done. So, and realistically in a real world macro, you would do other things. Like once you have selected the charge, you would maybe collect another teammate answer to ask the teammate how they want to update it, and then maybe add in an app request that specifically updates that charge, maybe refunds an amount or something like that. But for now, I am going to not do that. I just want to show you the search and the pagination, how it works, which is what we configured. So I'm not going to add in any more nodes. I'm just going to create this simply as is. Click create. And so now we can go back to our inbox and make sure that we're in the Balcony of Bliss support inbox. We should be able to see a get search for Stripe charges macro now. That's the one we just created, and that's the going to be powered by our app request that search and pagination inputs in it. So when I click it, it runs. It says select the charge in one update. When I click this drop down, it presents me this box. And again, if we go to the Stripe docs, we've got all these different ways that we can search through. So maybe like let's try refunded equals true. See if that one works. So we do refunded is true. Looks like a couple of them do match that amount. So we can see how the search is working correctly. We can also test the pagination by just doing an amount greater than 0 and showing you like the full list of results to come back. They'll come back. We set our value to 5 at a time, so you should be able to see this paginate like 5 at a time. As you can see it there, scrolling down, you can see all our list of charges in total coming back. So just as it paginates through all the full list. So that's how it works. Hope that makes sense. If not, like leave some questions in the comments on the community. We'd be happy to help you. Thanks for listening.